main features of using Life are that we've drawn on National Geographic materials, so that when we wrote it, we wanted to bring out the characteristics of National Geographic. So when you open the book, you'll notice there's really strong images, great photographs, which are really good for stimulating discussion in class. And it's important that the use of images linked to language learning is an important factor when you're trying to learn a language. We've tried to keep the text as close to the original as possible, so that when you're reading, quite often you're reading text that's sometimes quite authentic. We also use video from National Geographic, which a lot of that is using authentic English, so you really get to the experience of listening to authentic English. And because of that, it also lets us develop students' critical thinking, so that when you read a text, you're not just answering ordinary comprehension questions, you're having to think about quite interesting, sometimes complicated subjects, but challenging subjects, which are also very global, connected with different aspects of the world. So I think it makes it quite different from other kinds of language courses. But I think what makes it different is that a lot of them are presented in quite meaningful context. By that I mean, when a student comes to the lesson, they don't just learn English, they also learn about something interesting. And one of the best things that I've seen when I've observed teachers using the material is that students often leave the class and you say, what did you learn from today's lesson? And they don't necessarily just say, I learnt the past simple or the present perfect. They actually say, I learnt something new about the world. I learnt about this North American Indian tribe, or I learnt about a photographer who spends his life taking photographs of polar bears, or I learnt something new about the culture of a different continent, for example. Critical thinking isn't a new term. It was invented at the beginning of the last century, and before that people had been critical thinkers. But I think it's got a renewed emphasis in education now, just because the way information comes to us, and we're almost just saturated with information. Students need the skills to handle that. And if you're an English teacher and you're using quite authentic texts, you can't avoid the issue. So we made it a particular feature of the course because we wanted to include authentic text. Also, critical thinking links to the use of images as well. I mean, if you look at an image, you might say it's a picture of something, but actually in our book, quite often the picture has a background story. So because we used pictures from National Geographic photographers, quite often they took a picture, but there's a kind of a story behind the picture. And one of the ways we've exploited that is, yes, we'll ask students questions about images and get them to describe what they see, but we'll also get them to speculate about why the person took the picture, and then quite often they'll discover from the photographer what the story was behind the picture, and that allows you to use images and photographs also to develop students' critical thinking skills in a way, because they're having to analyse and evaluate the picture as well as simply describe it.